My general plan had been to have a very focused chat with my friends and anyone else who would like to hear what I have to say. But right now I'm sort of chasing my children down the river, which is why you can hear the gurgling noises. It's Chris McIlrath. I'm speaking to you from East Timor, from the mountains of East Timor, where there's a lovely stream. I live next to this stream. But my topic today, at the end of 2016, is the state of the world and what's going on and who's doing it and what we might wish to do about it if we knew what was going on. I certainly would like to do something about it if we knew what was going on, because the reality is that there are very few people who control the media and the armaments companies, and of course the politicians, because most politicians need campaign funding to get elected. And where do they get the campaign funding? They get it from corporations. And why do the corporations give them money? Because they want to control the politicians when they're elected. It's a very simple formula, but not generally spoken of in the media because it doesn't suit the owners of the media to tell people what's going on. But there's a lot going on. The armaments companies, of course, only make money if there's some threat of war or some actual war. So, of course, they create both. They create threats of war, or apparent threats of war, with all sorts of false flag, i.e. phony terrorist attacks. You look at nearly all of the terrorist attacks over the last, 10 or 15 years. Take the Bali bombing, for example, quite a famous thing. There was an interview done which was broadcast on SBS in Australia. You could never get a recording later of that show, but I have seen a recording of the show where the former president, the guy who was the president of Indonesia at the time of the Bali bombing, was asked who made the bomb, or bombs, whatever, and his answer was quite fascinating. He said that, well, it's embarrassing, the Indonesian military or the Indonesian police. So that was revealing. And if you go forward a little bit to the 9/11, well, that was, if you look into it, that was quite obviously not as was widely stated by the media. Rather like the Warren Commission about John F. Kennedy's assassination. Nobody believes that because it was such obvious nonsense. And that's quite the same for 9/11. No one who actually looks at any of the evidence would believe that a bunch of Arabs in a cave in Afghanistan or Pakistan or whatever could possibly have had any impact on buildings in New York, because they had this stupendous, massive surveillance system in America, which at the time was busy looking at an attack on the buildings in New York, not for real, but as a if it happens, what would we do? And this happened to be absolutely concurrent with the actual attack. So, of course, the observers and military radar people and so on were asking, is this a test? Is this for real? And there was a great deal of confusion about that, because Dick Cheney was, apart from being the former head of one of the big defence contractors, he was in a bunker coordinating this drill, which was in fact in total parallel with and synchronous with the actual attack on the Pentagon and the buildings in New York. So that was about the most obvious fraud that one could readily find. If you look at the buildings going down, you'll see what they call squibs, which is 20 or 30 floors below the actual collapse as it happened. You see these squibs, which is what they use when they're intentionally demolishing a building. And interestingly, the company used to collect up all the rubble was a demolition company. The same one used at the Oklahoma building, interesting, the same company. But these squibs come out, and what the squibs are, it's explosions lower down the building, which gradually go lower and lower, and they are destroying the central beams, the central very heavy iron beams which hold the building together. And that's how it's done when you want to do a controlled demolition. That was the name of the company, Controlled Demolition. So it was actually a controlled demolition, which is readily observable if you just watch the buildings go down. You see these squibs. There were particles of humans, tiny particles, found. I don't know exactly how far away. The fire department found them later, something like 500 meters away from the building. Minute particles of humans, because the explosions, which were not widely reported but observed by the people on the scene, sent bits of humans far from the building, because there were so many explosions, one on every floor in actual fact. As it went down, the iron beams that hold the building together were cut neatly into 20-foot lengths, which was precisely the size which was suitable for the controlled demolition trucks, which carted it away very quickly and sold the pieces, the evidence in actual fact, to be melted down in some other country. Anyway, so you get all these supposed terrorist attacks which give an excuse to, there's my children screaming in the background, well, playfully, to give excuse for the invasion of Iraq, even though the 9/11 building was never, demolition of that, there was never any link, actual link between the Iraqis and the building going down, but the population had been so sort of massaged by the propaganda of it all that they were quite happy to support an invasion anywhere in reaction to this attack on 9/11, even though on the day something like 70% of the population of New York State believed that it was, maybe 65% of the population believed that the government was responsible for this 9/11 attack on New York. And that percentage rose and continues to rise as time goes on, because the evidence supports the obvious fact that it could not possibly have occurred without the full, we're talking FULL support of the most senior military people and indeed government people in America at the time. So that's not speculation, that's supported by obvious visual evidence, and I suggest again that if you don't believe this, you have a look at the building going down. You can also have a look, if you're getting this from some other source, at www.znews.tv, znews.tv, which is my site, and it has Major General Stubblebine, a very senior military guy, very familiar with photographic evidence, who speaks quite profoundly about 9/11. Well worth a look. Anyway, so you got a long series, Dunblane, Port Arthur in Australia, Dunblane in the UK, which support the disarming of the population and generally work over the population with media coverage to make them ready for war sort of anywhere. And that went on and on and on and on. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, on and on and on. But really the population have got tired, this is really a key point, got tired of what they feel very suspicious about these false flag effect events, and then the requests in Congress or Parliament or whatever to invade some country far from America or England or Australia. So the population are over that, and this is a very, very significant turning point. And you can see this with Brexit, where Goldman Sachs and Blair and all the rest of the criminals, big-time criminals, supported remains for Britain to remain as part of the European Union, but in fact the population voted to go. Part of that was because they did not wish any longer to obey the propaganda of the elite. So that was interesting, and also Trump recently became President of America, again contrary to the propaganda, contrary to the mainstream media's massaging of the people to get Hillary Clinton, a clear criminal and generally awful person. So we've had evidence, clear evidence, that the people no longer are believing the mainstream media. There's another example, and that's like the New York Times and various other print media are no longer being read. I believe the New York Times has lost half of its readership in the last 12 months. And similar, perhaps less spectacular, but similar declines in people viewing the mainstream media because they simply don't believe it anymore. So they're looking onto social media, the internet and so on, to find out what's really going on. And this is part of what motivates me in the creation of znews.tv, or for the British ZNEWS TV, to reveal the truth, because people are hungry for it. They want the truth. People are watching, millions of people are watching sites like David Icke and Alex Jones and such people who were really very much on the periphery a few years ago, but now they're being believed over and above and with greater audiences in some cases than the mainstream media. So that's a kind of summary. I hope that's of some interest to you. Please follow this up. There are a whole range of excellent films on www.znews.tv, znews.tv. Great range of films which support this general theme, but go into much greater detail in various areas of it. But the whole purpose of my doing any of this is to be one of many people, many entities who are wanting to wake up the world, wake up the people on this planet before we become extinct. You've only got to listen to people like Noam Chomsky, who is now getting a bit older, but he's nevertheless the most quoted living author, and been a professor at MIT for 50 years, I think. Anyway, he mentions that we are looking at extinction. That's like the end of human species, and of course innumerable other species, due to the reckless damage, and one might easily interpret as deliberate damage to this planet to make it unlivable by the current species. For what purposes? Now that gets into another whole territory, but let's say there's very clear evidence of other, on the moon, for example, when the men did arrive on the moon, whether it was sort of earlier or later than stated, but when they did go there, there was a chap who I met, who was he was the head of Clyde Engineering in Australasia, and very, very, very stable, steady, sane guy. And he was at a party in Florida, held by the guy who was the head of the Man on the Moon operation. And during that party, the host was talking with a few people, including this gentleman from Clyde Engineering, who told me that the head of the Man on the Moon operation stated that when the men got there was clear evidence of 3 other civilizations having got to the moon first. There was a small pyramid, there was a plaque with hieroglyphics on it, some other item like a camera or a watch or something or other that was clearly not evolved from the rocks melting or so on. Anyway, I hope that's interesting, and I hope you subscribe to znews.tv or buy shares if they're still available. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues and all.